Right, good evening, everyone. Little Sunday night stream. Tottenham Hotspur are back. Tomorrow night, we will play Leicester. Tomorrow night, we will probably know what the result is going to be by the time you guys are watching this, by the time we've ended this stream. Spurs will have kicked off their Premier League campaign. Welcome, everybody. How are we all doing? Good evening to you guys. We're going to go through in this stream how I think Spurs are going to set up, how Leicester are going to set up, how we kind of combat that. At the moment, for me, and you guys help me out in the chat, there are only 4 outfield players for Tottenham that I think are guaranteed to start tomorrow under Ange Postecoglou in our first pre-season game, or first Premier League season game. We're out of pre-season now. We're into the real stuff. We're into the Premier League. Obviously, the Premier League kicked off this weekend. We've learned a lot about a lot of different teams, and what are we going to learn about Tottenham and Leicester tomorrow? Before we get into it, thank you to you guys that are in the chat. I can see Proby in here, absolute OG. Lewis Griffin, Wild Dog, El Dante, Archie Parker is always in these streams. Thank you guys so much for the support. Billy Price as well. How is everybody doing? This is going to be super interactive, like all the streams that we do. So I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear the team that you want to see. I'm going to go through the team that I think I would put forward. I'm going to go through what I think Andrew will put forward, and obviously we'll go through what you guys think as well. Obviously, we will briefly chat. I'm going to do a stream tomorrow morning as well for you guys that are watching this live on Sunday night. For you guys that are watching this afterwards, I will be streaming on Monday morning, as I usually do during the weeks, to chat transfer bits. Obviously, we will chat a little bit about Oliver Skipp now. Obviously, Oliver Skipp looks like he's on his way to Leicester. He will not be in the starting lineup tomorrow. I don't think he would be registered in time. The move hasn't been announced yet. Spurs get a good fee for him. We're going to go in and talk about that in a bit more detail on tomorrow's stream. So this is going to be, purely just about setting up. There's a lot to talk about. But before we get into that, I just wanted to say a massive thank you to you guys for the support on this video. Obviously, since the last time we spoke, Tottenham have a new signing, Wilson Odobert. I have done a video on it on my channel, which has, the kind of support on it has sort of blown me away, really, if I'm being honest. It's my most viewed video. Obviously, the Dominic Solanke one, we know, did really well. You guys loved that. And the Wilson Odobert one has kind of smashed it out of the park already. We're on 32,000 views on that video, which is absolutely nuts. So I want to say a massive, massive thank you to everyone who's watched that video, who's liked, who's subscribed, all that good stuff. Because, yeah, it massively helps me out, and I'm hugely grateful for kind of all your support on that. So tomorrow night is going to be a very, very interesting test for Tottenham, because Leicester are a team that we have kind of a bit of an indifferent record against them, especially away from home. Our last 5 games at the King Power, the last time we went there in the Premier League was that famous 4-1 defeat. One of the last games under Antonio Conte. Or actually, Conte wasn't even the manager, was he? Or was it when he was just about to leave? I can't remember if Stellini in charge. That whole period was just a bit of a blur, to be honest. The game before that was obviously the Steven Bergwijn game, the 3-2. We won there 4-2 in COVID, obviously with Gareth Bale. And then before that, it was in Pochettino's final season, we lost there 2-1. So we've won 3 out of the last 5 there. They've beaten us twice. And obviously the last time we played them, they beat us, and obviously they went down. They're back up. Enzo Maresca is not the manager anymore. Steve Cooper is the manager. Their form in pre-season started off okay, but over the last few weeks, things have got quite poor for Leicester, and I think their fans are quite worried about what the season holds for them. Obviously, points deduction potentially looming. I think we found out a little bit more about that today, potentially about their financial situation and the points deduction they might face. They won their first 2 pre-season games against Villarreal and Shrewsbury. Mavididi on target in both of those. I expect Mavididi to play tomorrow. They've got a few injuries, which I'm going to run through. I'm just going to run through everything kind of Leicester-related very quickly, and then we'll get on to Tottenham, because that's why you guys are here, obviously. But they lost 3 on the bounce back-to-back without scoring a goal against Palermo, Augsburg and Lens. 3-0 in their last pre-season fixture last weekend to Lens. Obviously, Tottenham coming in a little bit better shape. We've lost our last 2, but obviously I think the performance has been encouraging. I'm not sure Leicester fans are that encouraged. They seem very behind Steve Cooper at the start. It's a very different style of football to what we saw under Maresca. Maresca was very possession-based, very possession-heavy. This is classic Steve Cooper. This is, counter-attack, good wingers, transitional football, try and keep it tight. But they have got some good footballers in that midfield. None more so than Harry Winks. Obviously, like I said, Oliver Skipp won't be joining him just yet. But Harry Winks, obviously very familiar to Tottenham, will be in there. So this fixture always brings goals. This fixture has produced 128 goals in 34 Premier League meetings, the highest average goals per game of all Premier League fixtures to have been played more than 20 times. So, are we going to get fireworks? Are we going to get that box office tomorrow? Leicester unbeaten in their past 5 opening day fixtures. They are, however, winless in 5 Monday night Premier League matches. And Steve Cooper's last game, in fact, last game as a manager in the Premier League was against Tottenham. We were the kind of nail in the coffin when he was at Nottingham Forest. That 2-0 victory, Kulusevski and Richarlison on target in that one. So let's just talk quickly about kind of Leicester and how they're going to set up tomorrow, potentially. Obviously, they've got some injuries to be aware of as well. Jamie Vardy, Luke Thomas, Connor Cody and Patson Daka, the kind of notable absences. Obviously, you can see they're not there. They obviously have signed Facundo Buonanotte from Brighton, who obviously hasn't featured in pre-season for them yet, so I wonder if we'll see him tomorrow. During pre-season, they've kind of been set up in a 4-2-3-1 shape. We know Steve Cooper likes to usually play a 3 at the back. I think he'll go to that in possession tomorrow. Out of possession, they kind of set up in that 4-2-3-1. Out of possession, they set up in that 4-2-3-1. On the ball, they kind of are in a more 3-2-4-1 shape, creating that kind of box in midfield that we all know. So you kind of look a bit something like this. If Ricardo Pereira plays at the back, it'll kind of go to a 3 at the back with James Justin bombing on more as that left winger. Mavididi kind of coming inside as that number 10 if we expect Tom Cannon to play, with De Cordova, Reed and Mavididi kind of as those 2 number 10s, with Fatau out wide right, Justin out wide left, and you've got that box in midfield there of De Cordova, Reed and Mavididi, and Pereira there kind of tucking in as that right-sided centre-back in a 3. Obviously, Buonanotte, if he does play, you'd expect him to maybe play just behind the striker, maybe instead of De Cordova, Reed. You've got Hamza Chowdhury, who could potentially come in there as well. That's kind of an example, of how they would look maybe when they have the ball. When one fullback pushes on, the winger on that side will kind of slip into play as one of the 2 number 10s. Obviously, kind of a common system now that used. Obviously, Steve Cooper kind of moving, obviously, with the times a little bit. I saw a stat in terms of the formations that he used the most since September 2021, which is a 3-4-1-2. He hasn't really got striker options available to play with the 2 up front unless Mavididi joins Tom Cannon up there potentially. But that's kind of how Leicester are going to look when they've got the ball, kind of setting up with a 3 at the back and then out of possession with that kind of 4 at the back. But let's move on to Tottenham. So how does that affect us? How does that affect how we're going to set up? Let's go to the chat quickly. 151 of you in here now. Massively grateful for all you guys kind of joining on a Sunday night. Obviously do these streams usually during the week, but we've got a massive game tomorrow, our first Premier League game of the season away at Leicester. If you all wouldn't mind dropping a like on the stream, subscribing as well, sharing with anyone you might think might like it, and we can come in and have a chat, and we're going to do this ahead of a lot of the games, and we're going to be breaking this down as well on Tuesday morning. So, like I said earlier in the stream, I think there are only 4 outfield players that are guaranteed to start tomorrow. There are some on that bench on the fringe. Look at, this squad depth now that Spurs have kind of built. These are players that I all think could be on the bench tomorrow. Obviously, not all of them are going to be there, but it kind of speaks to kind of the squad depth that we do have now. Obviously, Ibasuma is over here on his own. He is suspended for obviously the incident with the laughing gas. The club are taking a very strong stance on that, and I back them for that. So let's get rid of Ibasuma. We don't need him there. We've got all of our defenders up here. I've kind of tried to separate this out into positions so we can kind of easily drag people on. We've got our defenders here. Spence drags into Doggy and Davis. Then we've got our midfield options in Sarr, Gray, Bentancur, Bergvall and Lo Celso. I don't actually think Lo Celso will be on the bench, but I just wanted to put him there. We've got Sarr, Gray, Bentancur, Bergvall and him. And then forwards, there's a lot of options. Obviously, Ange Postecoglou said that everyone is available. Everyone other than Yves Bissouma is available. So it'll be very interesting to see who he goes with. Like I said, I think that the only guaranteed starters tomorrow, outfield, are Son, Porro, Romero and Van der Ven. I think there are some on the bench that are definitely more likely to start than others. Like I said, I think Destiny Doggy will start. I think it's just, obviously, he's only had 45 minutes of football in pre-season, and that came in the second half against Bayern Munich. Obviously, he's been training with the last couple of weeks, so he should be fine, but there is a chance that maybe he does go with Jed Spence there. Obviously, he's got kind of that pace in transition to help deal with Fatau if he's out on that right-hand side. But Doggy has that as well. But maybe he goes with Spence. He might just be that little bit more sharp. Proby with a super chat, $5. Thank you very much, mate. I appreciate it. Back four, Proby, Ben Bowman, Big John Bass, and Dexter. That back four, if you know, you know, is winning titles. Let's see what you guys think then. Who do we think is going to play at left back? Do we think it's going to be Destiny Doggy? Do we think it's going to be potentially Jed Spence? I think it's probably likely to be Destiny Doggy, right? I think that, like I said, he's had that match fitness into him now with that second half against Bayern. Obviously, it's not a lot of football, but I think it'll probably be enough. I think he probably will take the gamble on him. What do you guys think in the chat? What do you guys think? We've got, the Knight says 5 outfield guaranteed to start, back 4 and so on. I think you're right. I do think it will be Destiny Doggy. We'll come on to the midfield. Mantix has got some good shouts for that. Because I think there are so many different kind of combinations you could go for, especially in that forward line as well. It's going to be very interesting and exciting to see what Spurs do. Matty Kushner says, a Leicester fan I spoke to said, we will beat them 7-0. That is very optimistic, I think. They have no striker, can't score a goal, bad at set pieces, and in bad form anyhow, will still lose. I mean, Leicester on the way, Leicester away first game of the season does feel a little bit cursed. I think it's going to be a Doggy, right? We do think it's going to be Destiny Doggy. I think the only thing holding him back is potentially that match sharpness, but I do think it's going to be him. So Destiny Doggy slots in there. Now this is where it gets very interesting. Very, very interesting in terms of that midfield. Obviously, like I said, we know Yves Bissouma for tomorrow. I think if Bissouma, the way that he's played in pre-season, would be a guaranteed starter to play as that number 6. We all know that, right? I don't think he would have done anything else. I think it's kind of forced his hand to make a decision. Obviously, Rodrigo Bentancur has only, as well as Destiny Doggy, had 45 minutes of pre-season football, kind of in terms of that match sharpness. However, obviously, Rodrigo Bentancur did play for Uruguay in the summer, so he's kind of got a little bit more in the tank. Again, it's frustrating for Bentancur that, again, coming into another season under Ange, he hasn't quite had that pre-season. Obviously, he was injured last year. Obviously, away on international duty this year. But I think when you saw Bentancur come on against Bayern, the way he sort of calmed things down in that midfield, nice little 1-2 combination play, you realise that he's so important to us and he's such a good midfielder when he is fully fit. Dry Rose Peanut says, put Bentancur in right away. Jason H says, start with Doggy and swap with Spence at half time. Will Hester, Darren and Doing in the chat. Make sure to go and watch the new episode of Darren and Doing before the Leicester game tomorrow. I'll put a tweet out and stuff about that shortly so you guys can get on that and join the Darren and Doing FPL League as well. Neruda says Archie Gray fills in for Basuma, Sarr and Bergvall. Matty Kushner says Sarr and Gray. So what are we thinking then? Maybe Gray is the 6. Obviously, Archie Gray started a couple of games in there. He could take the gamble on him. He could go with him. Archie Gray arguably maybe looked the most uncomfortable in pre-season when he was playing as that number 6. Looked more comfortable playing at centre-back and at right-back. Archie Gray, don't get me wrong, I think will be the number 6 for the future for Spurs. 100%. This guy has got unbelievable talent. But I do think he's probably going to go with a little bit more experience tomorrow. I think Gray will come off the bench. 100%, whether that's at right-back for Porro, whether that's in midfield as that number 8, alongside Bentancur, potentially. Because I do think the midfielder that I think we all think is definitely going to start, I think he will go Pat Matar. I think Sarr is in there for me. It's going to be very interesting to see what kind of your guys' midfield is, my midfield is, and what I think Ange will do. Because let's go straight away then. I think Ange will do this. I think Ange is going to go relatively safe, and I think he's going to go with that. I think it's going to be Bentancur, Sarr, and Maddison in there as that midfield. I think this... let me just get my clicker back. I think that's going to be in midfield for tomorrow. Maddison against his old club. Obviously not had the best pre-season. I think he's going to come into it with the point to prove. I do think, and again, we'll come on to it when we talk about the forward areas, I do think that having Solanke in the team as that focal point, Maddison will thrive with that little bit more. And I think that's something that I wasn't probably really taking into consideration during pre-season when I was talking about James Maddison. Because I didn't think we'd sign a striker. I didn't think we'd go out and spend big on Solanke. But we've done that. I think having that kind of springboard in Dominic Solanke to kind of bounce off, if you've got the ball, say if you move Maddison and Solanke kind of into that attacking third, Maddison kind of moving in between the lines and Solanke kind of dropping that bit deeper and floating, and at the centre back's kind of at his back. Solanke's so good with his back to goal that Maddison can kind of he can, if I could just get this little arrow up, he can, oh, whoops, wrong thing. Line. That's the one. He can kind of fire those passes in here. I think what Maddison is so good at is kind of getting it in here and drifting into the space and getting it back. I think having that focal point will help James Maddison. I do think that will help him. And like I said, I've been pretty tough on Maddison in pre-season because I expect the level to be a lot higher. But I think this is what Ange will go with. I don't know if you guys agree. Oh God, I don't know if you guys agree. I think that's the midfield that Ange will go with tomorrow. Bentancur, Sarr, and Maddison. It's someone that he can trust. A midfield that he kind of trusts. Maka Edit says Bentancur, Sarr, Maddison, Graham, Bergvall will come on if nothing gets creative. Maddison on Winks' side. Yeah, Maddison and Winks going to be an interesting midfield battle. Peter Gordon says Bentancur, Maddison, and Sarr. That's what he thinks it will be. I think that's what it will be. I think the interesting player, and also Zeddy's mentioned there, Sarr didn't have a great pre-season for Tottenham, but I just think in terms of this could be quite a transitional game with the way that Leicester will want to come forward under Cooper, like we mentioned, kind of setting up more as that 4 at the back, out of possession, with kind of as that Winks and Ndidi as that double pivot, kind of setting up out of possession like that. And then when they do break forward, you do have Justin and Decordova-Reid and Maddison and Mavididi kind of in there. So they will fly forward with pace. So if Spurs are able to kind of neutralise that threat and hit them on the break and are able to sort of play out quickly, Sarr's legs in transition will be quite useful for that. And like I said, he hasn't had the best pre-season, but I do think he will go with that kind of safe choice. Matty Kushner says, do you think Solanke was expecting to go to the Euros? Will it push him further if you thought he would go like Maddison and Porro's motivational push? Potentially. Although I think Solanke is kind of on the come up, so I don't think he really needs that anyway. But we'll come on and talk about Solanke a little bit more. Zeddy says Sarr is a safe choice. Just wondering if Andrew will go safe. Then again, I mean, we talked about last season, first game of the season, he chucked Van der Ven and a doggy in straight away. And we'll come on and talk about Wilson Odobert, and I just wonder whether he might get a start tomorrow. I'm not sure he will, because I think there's other players in there right now kind of more ready. But when I talk about it more in that midfield, and the reason that I want to talk about, the reason I bring that up when you're talking about that midfield is Lucas Bergvall and Archie Gray. And like I said, I don't think Gray will start. But in terms of what I would do, I think it's hard to drop Maddison. I do think it's hard to drop Maddison because as much as I think he's had an underwhelming pre-season, I think he's got a lot to prove. I do think against his old club, first game of the season against Leicester, like I said, actually having a focal point in the team, if Solanke does start, I do think that will bring the best out of him. And I expect to see a good performance from Maddison tomorrow. But I do think, I was talking about it before the game, kind of going into it, I would love to see Lucas Bergvall in there. Because again, I think if you've got Bentancur and Bergvall, and maybe that's where you take Sarr out, and maybe that's where you do this, and have Maddison in there, or you do something like this. If you play Bentancur as that deepest midfielder, and kind of play Kulusevski as that advanced 8, and then you maybe bring in Johnson and Solanke. Just move this box back a touch. Bear with. This is so fiddly. This. Yeah, so that's your kind of, that's what I'm thinking. Move Tom Cannon back. You got Solanke as the striker. Do you do something like that? Do you put Kulusevski into that number 10 position? Because Kulusevski has had an amazing pre-season. He's had an amazing pre-season. And I think one way or another Kulusevski will start tomorrow. Whether that's out wide and you just bring Maddison back in and maybe you take Bergvall out and you've got your creator there in Maddison and you maybe do that. I'll be honest, lads, I think that is the team that he goes with. I think that's the team he goes with tomorrow. I think it will be Porro, Romero, Van der Ven, Udogie, obviously Vicario in goal, Bentancur, Sarr, Maddison, Kulusevski, Solanke, Son. I'm very excited to see a Solanke debut. And look at, again, someone mentioned in the chat just there, where was that? Maka Edit says, I love the fact that we now have this problem. Too many good players to decide who plays in what position finally. I totally agree. There's a really nice kind of balance about the squad. I think there's more to add. Obviously, there's been links to kind of João Gomez over the last few days in terms of that more defensive midfielder going forward. I think he'd be such a great fit. If those links accelerate, there will be a video on the channel coming. Don't worry about that. I think with the form that Kulusevski has shown in pre-season, I think you have to start him one way or another tomorrow. He's one I'm very interested to get your thoughts on. Let's get a poll running. Make sure to subscribe and like the stream, by the way, guys. There's 270 people in here right now, which is a class for a Sunday. So Sunday night, I massively appreciate that. Right, should Kulu start tomorrow? And if you voted yes, let me know where, and then we can maybe come on and do that in a separate poll. Kulu plays centrally and Brennan plays out wide, says Neruda. Zeddy says last few seasons we had an obvious best 11 because it was, well, I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that a lot of rebuilding has been done with Tottenham. And like you said, the squad was rubbish. Like there was a lot of kind of fringe players that weren't going to get opportunities. And I think Spurs have done really well to clear out a lot of the deadwood. 96% of people at the moment are saying that Kulusevski should start. Okay, so I think that's pretty clear. Would you start? Let's start another poll then. 60 of you voted on that. Like I said, guys, 270 people in there right now. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to be optimistic. We're on around 3.8, just up to 3.9k now. Trying to get to 4,000 before the kickoff tomorrow against Leicester, which would be absolutely massive, which would mean for the third consecutive week, we've done 1,000 subscribers in a week. The channel is growing really, really nicely. So where should Kulu play? Right wing, midfield. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts, because this is what, I'll be honest, this is what I think he'll go with. I would probably go with this as well. I'd probably go with Kulusevski, Solanke and Son as that front three. I think Solanke's ability to, if we kind of move these guys back maybe, and let's kind of get Spurs up the pitch a little bit. Move Mavadini back out there. Or kind of play these almost as like two strikers, because I think Decordova-Reid will play up front with Cannon if Cannon does play as well. Just play just off him. When you've got Solanke, if we just move everyone up that little bit. I mean, Sonny is someone we hardly talked about. I expect Sonny to get off to a flyer tomorrow. I do. Let's move everyone up to kind of like almost in build-up, and Leicester defending in more of that 4-2-3-1 shape. You got Porro in there, a doggy as well. It's kind of very, crowded. What you've got is someone like Solanke who will, if these centre-backs are narrow, Solanke will happily run in here. Solanke will run the channels really, really well, which I think does allow Kulusevski to then drift in there. And Solanke will do this running for you. And again, you've got Sarr who will make those runs in the channels. You've got Porro that will make those runs in the channels. What I'm interested to see with Solanke in the team is if you've got now more of a focal point. Say, let's drop these guys back a little bit. We've got Sonny out wide. What I'm interested to see with Spurs this season is how much Spurs can kind of exploit having this target man with two excellent crossers of the ball in Kulusevski and Porro. Two excellent crossers. Obviously, Kulusevski's kind of got these, these whipped ones in here with those kind of in-swingers. That is something I really want to see kind of Kulusevski bring back. Obviously, Porro as well is so deadly from these positions. Johnson, when you're on the break, I don't think Johnson is a great crosser from deep, but Johnson kind of, if you break forward in transition, these kind of the cutback ones to Solanke, who we know thrives, oh god, let me just get the clicker back, in and around kind of that 6-yard box for those cutbacks. So there's a real amount of variety of kind of delivery into the box for Solanke, who we know can play as that target man. I'm very interested to see if you are more likely now to just see one of these fullbacks inverting rather than both of them. And Porro, given the fact that we've got that striker, we see Porro hugging that touchline that little bit more, allowing Kulusevski to play as a right winger, but more of that kind of inside of number 8. Is that number 10? I do just wonder that. Let me know what you guys think in the chat, and get your predictions in as well. Let's just bring everyone back a touch, kind of just back into the formation. I do wonder whether we will only. I talked about this with Wilson Odobert in the video that I did. With Wilson Odobert kind of liking to staying tight to the touchline. He's very comfortable crossing on both feet. I do wonder, again, that will suit Porro and his invert and how much he inverts. And again, if he plays on the left-hand side with the doggy as well, I do just wonder whether we will see Porro playing more as a natural right-back with Kulusevski. If he does start on this side, Kulusevski wanting to kind of drift into these areas where he's so dangerous. So dangerous. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. Palcic says maybe Ange plays Bentancur as a 6, Madders as an 8, and Kulu as a 10. I don't think that's a shout. I think what you could see, depending on the game state, is maybe a substitution like this, and then you bring Johnson on, and then you do that. But I think with the midfield options that you have got in, I mean, let's take away Lo Celso because he's not going to be on the bench, is he? In Gray, you know, if we just tuck these all on here as kind of midfield options. Gray, Bergvall, Maddison. Again, Kulusevski. Where did I put Sarr? Oh, I got rid of Sarr. Whoops. I accidentally deleted him. Sarr. You know, that's a lot of options that Spurs have got. And again, this is something I spoke about quite a lot during the Euros. I think people kind of need to get into their heads kind of this almost... Let me just move Van der Ven out of the way. These are all the midfielders that Spurs could interchange with tomorrow. Bentancur, Maddison, Bergvall, Sarr, Gray, Kulusevski. Those are a lot of options that Spurs could kind of rotate with tomorrow. You talk about your starters and your finishers. I think Sarr is a starter, and then I think you bring someone like Bergvall on to give you that bit of control. You know, if you're winning 2-0, just keep possession. Bentancur and Bergvall, I really liked what I saw in the Bayern game. Let's just take Maddison off because I think that could be a sub. And say if you end the game with, if you end up with a kind of a midfield like this, potentially, that could be something that we see. I really like the idea of these two kind of dropping in as a double pivot together. Bergvall's so comfortable coming and getting it off the centre-backs. Bentancur, lots of rotation in there as well. And this is where it's so frustrating about Bissouma, because I really think that this could have been really nice. Oh, I've done it the wrong way around. I really think this could have been something nice. Bissouma, Bentancur and Bergvall. But again, hopefully we'll see that at some point during the season. Maybe it could be João Gomez. But obviously Bissouma is kind of an irrelevancy when it comes to tomorrow. But again, I think Ange, you know, is not scared to kind of use his substitutes. We will see a lot of rotation. I think we will see that tomorrow. And I think you kind of starters and finishers. I think that's something that people need to kind of understand. I think we will see a lot of rotation in that midfield in game. And I think Archie Gray will come on. I think Bergvall will come on as well. But I do think this is the midfield that I've lost Sarr again. Oh, what have I done with him? Oh no, this is all going Pete Tong now. There it is. I do think this is the midfield that will start. I do think that's what we'll see at the start. And I think we'll see Kulusevski, Solanke and Son. It's a must-win game, says Maz. Yeah, guys, let me know your predictions in the chat. I think we'll win tomorrow. I do think we'll win tomorrow. I think it could be quite comfortable for us. It's just that it's got that kind of those natural tetchy nerves about it. It's Leicester. It just doesn't feel great, does it? It doesn't feel great. But I think we'll win. Odobert. Let's talk about Wilson Odobert. Wilson Odobert is a sign that I'm really excited about. Like I said, guys, massive thank you kind of for the support on this video. If you've not watched this already, 32k views on this one. My best performing video ever since we started the channel. And the support has been just incredible. Go and give this a watch because I think it kind of gives you a real insight into how Spurs will use him. And again, Wilson Odobert is someone that could come on. There's been a few people in the chat talking about Sonny. Wilson about unavailable to work due to work permit. That hasn't been confirmed yet. So if we're going on the presumption that Odebear could play a part, and there might be one to chat more with the Everton game next week. But if Odebear does play a part, he can come on both wings. He'll get out the fullback. He'll run into space. I think this kid could be a bit of a game changer off the bench. I really do believe that. Potentially that is something that we might see. But I do think that's how he'll start it. Richarlison obviously back. I think he'll get some minutes in the legs. I think we'll get about 15, 20 minutes tomorrow, which is good. Needs those minutes in the tank to get that fit. I don't think we'll see much of Solomon. I think there's even a chance that Solomon might not be on the bench. I think we'll see Mikey Moore come on. I do think we'll see that. I think Werner might play a part as well, potentially. So we shall very much see. Arda says Bergvall has to be starting. He changed the game against Bayern in both games. World-class potential. I totally agree. But I wouldn't put the pressure on saying he has to be starting. I would love to see it. But I'm not sure. A lot of people saying Odebear is overrated. Odebear is Doué light. I think Odebear is the best alternative to Doué on the market. I think he's got really exciting potential. So let's just let him kick a ball first, lads. So 62% of people said they want to see Kulusevski in midfield. So you think it will be Johnson on the right? Okay. Interesting. Must-win game. I totally agree. Someone said 12 versus 11. Have I got too many players on the pitch there? I don't think I do. I think I was just kind of showing different options. OJ says start with runners like Sarr and Bentancur, then add the quality of Gray and Bergvall. Yeah, I like that, mate. I do like that. Can move Kulu later for running as the 8 and sub on Odebear and Brennan for pace. Yeah, OJ, I like that as well. Paul Savoury says I'd like to see us bring Radu in and have Maddison or Son come off and play a 3-5-2 with Kulu and Solanke playing up top together. I don't think you need Kulusevski and Solanke up top together. People saying Kulu is a 9. I think Solanke will play, in my opinion. Matt says, do you not think Johnson is better suited to right wing than Kulu? Arguably, yes. But I think that with the way that Kulusevski's been playing, I just don't think you could. I just don't think you can't. I think you have to play Kulusevski tomorrow. Like, Kulusevski is in kind of this... We talked about this on Daring and Doing. I think Kulusevski is kind of in this flow state right now. Kind of everything is going right for him. He's been playing in different positions. Everything is working for him. And like I said, I would not be surprised if Kulusevski starts on the right wing. You see Sarr and Porro taking up wider positions. But obviously, Porro really comfortable inverting and kind of getting into these areas as that number 10. But I would not be surprised to see Porro, especially like I said now, with Solanke kind of as that target man almost in the box, staying wider and using that crossing ability from wide and linking up with Porro and Sarr down here. And Sarr coming out wide. Again, there's going to be a lot of rotation. Kulusevski will drift inside and drift outside naturally. And like I said, I think you've got a striker in Solanke who will obviously back in and kind of allow you to play off of him, but also will run in the channels and do a lot of selfless work for you and open up spaces, which could be crucial. Again, we'll kind of come back to it. If you've got Solanke kind of running into these areas, that allows then, if Solanke kind of runs in here, that allows Maddison and Kulusevski and also Sonny to drift inside as well, kind of from wide. So I think what we're going to see definitely tomorrow is a lot of fluidity, a lot of rotation, and I think we're actually going to see Tottenham play with a centre forward for the first time since Richarlison was probably properly fit and firing. And I think one thing that we learned, one thing that we thought about Ange at the start kind of this project was that this team maybe doesn't need a proper number 9. Maybe we were kind of gaslit into believing that because Sonny had such a brilliant start to last season. And obviously he was kind of seen as that perfect Ange number 9 because he could get in and around the box, one-touch finishing, converting high XG chances, such a sharp finisher. But I think one thing that we quickly learned last season was that this team is better with a focal point. And I think Solanke, it unlocks the best of Maddison. I think it unlocks the best of Kulusevski. And I think it unlocks the best of Sonny. And I think when you've got a striker that allows those 3 men that will play, if you're setting up more in kind of a 4-2-3-1, just as when we had Harry Kane, and think about this as say if this almost goes into a double pivot, because this is what it will look like at times as well, guys, right? And again, we spoke about Tottenham kind of building up in that 2-3-5 or 3-2-5 shape as well. If you've got that front 4 here, and you've got a striker now in Solanke that suits, that will get the best out of all the best attributes of these three forwards, then you've got a lot of goals on your hands there. I genuinely believe that. I think he brings the best out of Maddison in someone who can fire it off to and get it back from. Sonny as well. Solanke will drop deep and play those balls in behind, just like Harry Kane used to. And Kulusevski as well. With Solanke being able to run the channels, allows Kulusevski to come inside that little bit more. I think you've got three players there that will press for days in Solanke, Kulusevski and Son. And Maddison kind of just picking up those second balls as well. And once you do turn the ball over and win it back, you've got someone like Maddison with that deadly creativity kind of in the final third to make something happen once you make those turnovers. So, lads, that's kind of how I see it for tomorrow. I see Spurs winning. I see Spurs winning fairly comfortably. I could see a 3-1. Let me know what you guys think in the chat. Thank you all very much for joining. Let's get some of your comments quickly before we go. And like I said, guys, if you haven't watched this live, if you're watching this tomorrow morning or Monday morning, if you're watching this tonight, if you're watching this in USA, Australia, whatever, wherever you're watching this from, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Timmy says, hopefully Solanke will make runs like Kane used to, able to get back and help his team, but also be able to help open up space, 100%. Binky says, heard people saying they expect us Johnson, Sonny, Cooley front three and can't see Solanke starting. I think Solanke will start. Dan Kilpatrick has confirmed the doggy is likely to start tomorrow. Nice, okay. Nice. Has he confirmed anybody else? Do we know that? Zeddy says our high turnovers are going to be a joke this season. Can't wait to watch. I totally agree, mate. I think that front four, high turnovers, absolutely galore. Over 300 people in here, lads. Massively appreciate your support on a Sunday night. And by this time tomorrow, we will know the result of Tottenham's first game of the season. I'll be live probably on TikTok tomorrow night after the game. I probably won't do a YouTube live, but again, I'll be live on Tuesday morning to break down the Leicester game. And yeah, it's a big week for Ben Bowman. Yeah, some exciting things coming. I will be, I think I can say it now, I will be on the Overlap fan debate on Wednesday, going up to Manchester for that one. So there won't be a stream on Wednesday morning. Really excited about that. I'm going to kind of be the Tottenham fan on there talking about Tottenham. So make sure you kind of, get behind me and give that a watch when it comes out. But yeah, lads, big week. Tottenham's first game. We'll be there tomorrow. Hopefully we get that win. Hopefully we keep the season off in the best way possible. Thank you so much for everyone that tuned in this evening. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Get at me on Twitter as well. Go and give me a follow over there. Kind of closing in on, where are you? Like 3.5k. On 3.5k followers now on there. So yeah, go and give me a follow there. Chat to me over there. So yeah, we'll be there. Nice one, guys. Have a good rest of your Sunday evening. Have a good Monday. I will see you live tomorrow morning. We're going to chat through Oliver Skip, João Gomez, everything else about the game tomorrow. But that's kind of been your tactical preview of it. Have a good one, lads. And up the Spurs. Fingers crossed for a good result tomorrow. Come on, you Spurs.